right? And so, you know, you had Haitians leaving for various reasons. There were those who were clearly fleeing from the Duvalier dictatorship, and this was a time, of course, where quite a few Haitians left Haiti. Let me take back the word left, because I don't want you to assume that they just got up and decided they were going to leave. So, you know, exile was brutal for many people. And that exile, some people found themselves, again, in the French-speaking world or in the United States. And then, of course, later on, and this migration history, you know, the very last phase is when the boat people crisis begins to evolve. Now, one interesting note about the Haitian boat people crisis is that it's an interesting byproduct of the Duvalier regime's strategy and policy of overpopulating the city. That is, attracting Haitians who live in provinces, who live outside of the capital, attracting them to come into Port-au-Prince, come into the capital for the Duvalier regime's political purposes, right? But then these people were in this capital city of Port-au-Prince, a city built to accommodate what, 700,000? Dr. Morash, you'd say 700,000. It was swelling, and of late, you know, people are talking about 2 to 3 million people living in Port-au-Prince. An impossible situation. But Duvalier, you know, for his own purposes, for his own popularity, for his own political machinations, attracted and sort of recruited people, you know, Haitians who were living wonderfully and peacefully in their home provinces, attracted them to the cities. And once they were in these cities for a long time, without work, without housing, you know, conditions deteriorating, poverty hitting very hard, these began to be the folks who were your first candidates for these boat rides to Miami. All right? So essentially, you could say that the Haitian community in South Florida is made up largely of boat people. You know, that would be synonymous to the Cuban Marielitos, right? Understanding clearly that this is a term that some people find offensive, depending on the context in which it's used. But in addition to the Haitian boat people, of course, you had other Haitians who either migrated from northern states in the United States, who wanted the warmer climate that Florida offered, and so left places such as Chicago, New York, Boston, Connecticut, you know, those colder regions of the world, and were attracted to Miami. Weather was definitely a significant factor. Proximity to Haiti was another factor for a lot of people. You know, the exile mentality or the exile experience, I guess you could say, is the same throughout exile communities and exile peoples. There's always this notion that you're going to go back, right? You know, you live in a country. Once you're forced out of your homeland, there is something in you that has you believe that you are going to return, as opposed to those people who make the choice of migrating and decide to choose to for various reasons. Maybe they don't nurture the concept in the same way as those who are forced out. I think in addition to being sort of a coping mechanism, it is the common experience that I think exile peoples throughout the face of this earth sort of experience. They hold on to that dream of returning, whether or not the dream ever materializes. So, and make up, the community is largely made up of these populations, and of course, with this population, understand clearly that you have your class differences, as you have class differences in any ethnic group in Miami-Dade County, any racial group in Miami-Dade County. You have people who do relatively well, you have those who do really, really well, and you have those who are struggling, and those who are, you know, below struggling, right? And that's the reality of our communities, our collective communities in Miami-Dade County. But clearly, you know, one of the challenges that I think we have is the fact that the Census Bureau does not routinely provide the option to self-identify as Haitian on the census form. And so what that poses as a challenge is that we can never know for sure just how many Haitians there are, either in South Florida or in the United States. You'll always be people are always guesstimating, and there are various formulas to arrive at that guesstimate. You know, there are policy institutions, think tanks that come up with some really solid formulas, but you know, we'll say that we know anecdotally that there are probably close to 500 to 700,000 Haitians in the South Florida region, right? Understanding the region to be Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach, right? But the Census Bureau would offer you a number that they derive based on those who self-identify as Haitian. And sometimes, you know, there are Haitians who choose not to identify themselves as Haitian. There are Haitians who identify themselves based on their ethnicities of, how should I put it? Let me just not get fancy. There are some white Haitians who identify themselves as white, okay? So I was trying to find something, you know, but no, it's best to just be direct. That happens, just as there are Haitians who identify themselves as black, period, right? And so that's an area that poses a challenge to the extent that it keeps us from arriving at a sure number, right? But that doesn't change the fact that we know that there's a large community thriving, and some parts are struggling clearly, but definitely making a lot of great headway, right? Now, your question about the diaspora, this Haitian diaspora, at least in the United States, you would say, since there are Haitians that reside in New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, Massachusetts, Chicago, California, and you know, I'm sure that there are, you know, I'm sure North Carolina is increasing now because again of the meat packing industry. So there are lots of folks following the jobs and moving there. I'm sure there are some Haitians in Texas. I've heard this. I'm sure we'll find some Haitians in Alaska. Again, we're talking about people looking for an opportunity, looking for work, and you know, like any other immigrant community, people will tend to follow the jobs, and they'll end up wherever those jobs happen to exist, those opportunities happen to exist. So, but the diaspora is very strong. Again, no one can tell you that the Haitian community, the Haitian population in the United States is X. No one can say that. Again, it's guesstimates. The last number that I saw came from, I want to say, the Brookings Institution. And again, this was a slicing and dicing exercise based on flawed numbers, and I just explained those reasons. And they had the population pegged at 579,000. So, but still, you know, that doesn't change the fact that the diaspora is very involved, very active, sustains Haiti in many ways. Financially, clearly that's done through remittances, through trade and commerce. That's growing very significantly. I think the diaspora enriches culturally as well, because as we, as Haitians or Haitian Americans, live in societies outside of Haiti, we then, you know, we help to transform Haitian society in many ways, you know, and I know that some of us try very hard to transform that chauvinism that persists in Haiti, but you know, that I'm making light of a very, very serious issue. But that's an area in which, you know, the contributions are made. Of course, culturally, you know, these days you listen to Haitian Creole and you'll find a Haitian Creole rapper, and that's not out of the ordinary. Just as you'll find that many elements of American popular culture are firmly rooted in Haiti. Again, because of proximity, you know, the internet, and all of those exchanges, people-to-people exchange, as I like to call it. So, I don't know, I hope I've given you a bit of a response. I know that I didn't tackle the question, and it's, right, as I said, it would be another session, quite frankly. Yes, ma'am.
All right. As you touched base on the road crisis, I know during that same time, that was around the same time with the whole stigma that Haitians brought AIDS.
Oh, yes.
To the United States.
I remember
and as a public health major, well, doing my master's right now, do you still believe that the HIV stigma is still prevalent within the Haitian community? And
well, you know, I would say that it's dissipated a bit, right? You know, you still have some folks who refuse to be enlightened by the science and continue to believe these notions that, a cultural group per se, is an agent for a virus such as AIDS, or HIV rather. And you have people who believe these things, not just because they believe in this flawed scientific concept, but because, at the root of all that are their own prejudices, their own biases, so on and so forth. So, you have healthcare workers who know better and, should not give the impression that they're not too comfortable dealing with a Haitian person, but at times, I've sensed it, right? So that's to say to you that while there have been significant advances, I think there are still remnants of this unfortunate characterization. Very, very much so. And not just among healthcare workers. You have it among people who don't know, who don't understand the people, who don't understand certain things and choose to believe these flawed notions. Yes.
Would you also say that there's sort of a lack of HIV campaigns within the community?
I think we have collectively become too lax in terms of HIV, and in particular in the Black communities. Because if you follow the stats, there is a resurgence of HIV and AIDS infections in Black communities, and I think that those researchers in this field are trying to understand what's going on, what explains this, and I think we've just gotten complacent. So that's a challenge. That's something to be dealt with, and of course it coincides with the promiscuity that I think we see in our communities throughout, right? With too many young kids busy having sexual relations at ages that are absolutely impossible, right? And so, in addition to HIV, you have a number of STDs that are on the rise among very young kids. I'm talking 9, 10, and 11. I'm not making it up. I'm not making this up. All right. So, and the studies out of the public health department here are very alarming because, again, kids today are having sexual relations a lot younger, and you can just imagine what's going on. And so we definitely see a rise of that, and I pray that we turn this tide, especially in terms of HIV. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
When you were discussing Haitian independence, you mentioned, almost in passing, that it was accomplished with a variety of ethnic groups from Africa. And I'm wondering, that to me is a significant point, and I'm wondering if the different African ethnic groups that coalesced in Haiti, if that's a factor today in the Haitian community.
I don't know that much has been made of the fact that those enslaved Africans who came from various tribes, different tribes, and of course it's a divide and conquer strategy, right? Various tribes placed in an environment to sort of face a common enemy. I think that the fact that they have this common enemy, this common plight, sort of probably impacted positively the strife that you would imagine would exist if there were not the enslavement, facing them as a common challenge, right? And so, linguistically, they had to get along. They had to, one, figure out what the other was saying. Of course, remember, different tribes speaking different languages. And again, I think conditions, the fierce conditions, the violent conditions of slavery sort of compelled them to get along and to figure out how to, again, focus on the common enemy. So I don't know that much has been studied along the lines that you're raising, because what we have really is the collective spirit that they in fact demonstrated to produce this independence. Anybody else? All right, so this is what I wanted to close with. Another one of my Jacques-Stéphane Alexis quotes. I love this man. He was such a powerful, significant figure in Haitian history that I hope you have a chance to browse Masters of the Duke. Very enlightening novel. So, you know, he said something like, people, and I'm translating or paraphrasing, forgive me, he said something like, peoples are like trees. And they flourish with each passing season. Our own tree, the Haitian tree, has produced a number of very significant offsprings that humanity must recognize as their own, and has in fact recognized as their own. And so for me the takeaway is very much that Haiti has contributed significantly. The production, the contributions of various, and I didn't even begin to touch upon all of the key figures that make up Haitian history and culture. But all of these people have contributed immensely to humanity, and humanity has taken full ownership of their great contributions and their great gifts. So I just wanted you to remember that. Thank you. Thank you so very much. I had a great time, very engaged. Thank you for your time, and we'll see you again soon. Yes, so you read a very short proverb and you say, oh my goodness, you know, what could this mean? But when you unpack it, it is as long as one of Montesquieu's treatises, okay, in terms of the richness of the meaning and the impact, etc. So again, this is to say to you that, you know, as a people, and I didn't even touch cuisine. Haitian, you know, I like to suggest that Haitian cuisine is the very best in the world, and so when I say that, you know, some of my friends will challenge, some of them will believe, and you know, go along with it, and I think it is because you know, Haitian cuisine brings in elements of a number of highly celebrated culinary styles. Right? You know, from many of the French culinary traditions to African culinary traditions to Caribbean spices and traditions to Native American, you know, the Taino Indians who populated Haiti before the Haitians were brought, before the Africans were brought as slaves who later on became Haitians. Well, those traditions were also maintained. And so I say this with all the multicultural fabric in my body, with all of the open-mindedness that I can muster. Yes, I believe it is the best cuisine. And the day you have some, you'll know. And once you've had it, you can't go back. I know that. So that, you know, I wanted to just make light of cuisine, because clearly all peoples can make the same claim, right? But bottom line is that I think I violated a principle that I warned you against, and that is to not think that yours is better than the next, or that yours is superior to the next. So I apologize for having violated that, but you understand the spirit of pride that makes me who I am, that takes me from that place called Haiti, that takes me with all of its strife, with all of its challenges, all of its issues. And you all know as well as I do that there are a number of what we might consider insurmountable challenges. But again, one of the lessons of Haitian history, and the takeaway for me, is that we overcome. We overcome in the face of sometimes the most persistent challenge, and there is a long tradition of doing exactly that. And so, you know, I believe that given that history, given that tradition, I know that there isn't much that we set our minds to that we won't do. Clearly, recognizing the challenges. I'm not taking away what you know about the earthquake of late. I'm not taking away what you know about the challenges in terms of the various government and the governmental policies, or the lack of policies that would secure the people of Haiti, or that would promote economic development in Haiti. All those things that you know as well as I do. Not taking away those realities, but I know that as a person of Haitian origin, I embrace the world with that sense of self, that sense of pride, that sense of place, that sense of being a member of the world community, a contributing member of the world community, and my history gives me that, right? And for me, that's the takeaway. That is part of what I wanted to share with you as well. So I want to, of course, allow for your questions and your comments, and I want to tell you also that nothing you would say would be considered offensive, because in this type of environment, consider this as a laboratory, a safe place where we are here to learn. I am here to learn from you as you are here hopefully to learn from me. So please don't be bashful, ask your questions, challenge, push back on what I've said, and let's see if we can, keep this going for a little bit before I close with a final comment or thought. So questions, comments? My pleasure. Questions, comments? Because I have a concluding remark.
There was one thing I forgot to say in the introduction. I know several of you are here for classes, and there are class sign-up sheets that'll be available in the table as you walk out. But I know you want to get to the questions now.
Yes.
What was the article you said that we could find in the library?
Which?
You said an article towards the end of your speech about what we could look in the library, we could find it. It's very interesting.
I refer to a book, 999 Haitian Proverbs.
Okay.
It's a very thin book, fascinating, right? Fascinating stuff. Yes. Anything else? Any other comments, questions? Yes, sir.
You mentioned that in September 1956 there was a conference in terms of the most intellectual Black individuals.
Yes.
What was that conference called?
The Congress of Black Writers.
Okay.
It took place in Paris at the Sorbonne, and it brought together writers, poets, novelists, intellectuals from the Black world, right? Inclusive of Africa, the Caribbean, and the United States. And interestingly, let me step back on the United States, because though Richard Wright was there, he did not necessarily travel to Paris directly from the United States. I think he had transitioned somewhere else, because W.E.B. Du Bois was denied a visa to travel to attend this conference, because, of course, the concept or the mindset then was, well, you're going over there to Paris and you're going to bash American policies, you're going to bash American policies that are in fact discriminatory, that are all the things that the policies were at that time. And so Du Bois was not provided the permission, if you will, to participate. But there were some others from Africa, from the Caribbean, from Haiti. Haiti had a strong delegation.
And then just one more thing additional to that, the term that was used to celebrate more or less Black culture.
Negritude.
Negritude.
Okay, blackness. Very interesting concept, and in literature, of course, and that's the irony sometimes, and the study and the field of the humanities. Call it that Eurocentric perspective, call it that perspective that's all about the classics sometimes, or writings of the European traditions, that don't make room enough for your Gabriel Garcia Marquez's, that don't make room for your Jacques-Stéphane Alexis, that don't make room for the Pablo Nerudas and all of the other folks who write in Latin America and the Caribbean, and enrich, this collective story, history of peoples and cultures and traditions. At times, unfortunately, we give the impression that we value some versus others. And so I think that's something that you all need to keep in mind as you pursue, your own interests, There's so much to be learned from the Asian world. There's so much to be learned from the African world. So much to be learned from the Caribbean and the Central and Latin American world. So, broaden your horizons. Broaden your horizons, because there's so much to learn out there. Yes, sir.
There is any museum or place where we can find such a wonderful comments on literature about Haiti here in Miami?
You know, I think most libraries have something, some works.
In terms of cultures or pictures, or I mean, like museums?
Sure, right here, even the FIU library would have, I think, an extensive collection of Haitian works, from literature to language to history, so on and so forth. Now, there are bookstores in the Haitian community at which you might buy, you know, a few works. Now, sometimes the challenge is that they're written in French, so if you can't read French, that would be a significant challenge. But otherwise, I know that libraries tend to store works that have been translated, right? And so if not this school's library, the Dade County Library would have some things, and part of what we want to do at Supply as well is create a Haitian American archives. And of course, if I let this archive project get the best of me, it's going to become a library, right? Because there's so much to be added. There is so much that captures the imagination of scholars, of curious people, and individuals who just want to know, just want to learn. And so, you know, we've got a nice collection on Haitian voodoo, on Haitian philosophy, as I call it, on literature, on the local community's contributions, and it, you know, the challenge is to at least offer the right collection. Let me take back the word right. Offer a collection based on your own means and based on what you assume to be the interest of the people in the community, right? So, you know, I offer you that, okay? Go ahead. Sir.
First of all, thank you so much for the enlightening presentation. I enjoyed it, and I'm sure everyone found a lot of interest in the presentation. As a person who is so energetically and widely involved in the community, being a community organizer and so on, can you talk a little bit about the Haitian community in Miami?
Oh, absolutely.
I'm also interested, given my own scholarly interests in the dynamics between the host country, the receiving country, and the native country.
Sounds like another lecture, but I'm going to tackle.
Well, or the
Okay.
identity.
No, I got you, yes. Yes, ma'am. Get your question, go ahead.
I wanted to find out a little bit about the Haitian diaspora impact on Haiti and the culture and all of the dishes. And
Excellent.
the Haitian Heritage Museum in the Design District is another nice spot.
That is a very nice spot, and their mission is to, again, do a lot of what we just did tonight, but with K-12 student population, right? And so it is making Haitian cultural experiences accessible to students and very often to teachers, you know, to provide resources that enrich a lesson plan or a learning experience for a class, a school. And so, you know, we see this as definitely a step in the right direction. Now, of course, when you consider that the Haitian community is not one with vast wealth and resources, and so there are a number, though, of very significant efforts, good, worthy efforts, such as the museum that you mentioned, and there's room for so much more. There is need for so much more, but as a growing community, and I hope to get to your question, as a growing community, I think we'll see these things evolve. We'll see these things be put in place as we develop a little bit more wealth and resource, if I could say it that way. Now, recognizing that the Haitian community in Miami-Dade County, I would say, is roughly 30 to 35 years old, right? How I come to that is when you consider, of course, outside of those pioneer families who resided in Miami, Florida, when it was the sleepy, you know, bedroom communities that you know that our community used to be. Well, you know, there were Haitian families who resided here and who raised their families here, and you know, would have gone unnoticed. But with the advent of the Haitian boat people crisis, and I think the very first crisis that dates to 1981, 1981 or 1982. This is when the very first boatload of refugees capsizes on Hillsborough Beach. And then that not only did the Miami-Dade County community, the Florida community, and if not the United States, stands up and takes notice of this place called Haiti and the people who were coming to Miami. Now, of course, understand that prior to this very first boatload of refugees, there was a pattern of Haitian migration to the United States that some people say dates back to the 30s and 40s. And of course, you know, we're talking about people who were looking for, who had the means to travel to the United States and maybe try to be part of commerce and trade, but of course recognize that those people were not just of means, but could pass, if you know what I mean. And beyond that, there was a period where the United States immigration policy, because of its own need for a labor force, for additional laborers, opened up its policies to attract Haitians. And so, you know, you had quite a few waves of immigrants who took advantage of the very liberal American immigration policy that enabled them to arrive here. But even prior to those policies, you had families leaving Haiti for various reasons. You had families leaving because they were leaving Haiti for Africa, where the newly independent states in Africa, French-speaking in particular, were attracted to French-speaking Haitians who were teachers and trained in various disciplines, who could then travel and live in these states, in these countries, and of course help in the development of these nations. And so you have that attraction towards Africa. But then the language attraction continued, whether it was Africa, whether it was the French-speaking European countries, you know, France, Belgium, Switzerland, and of course closer to North America, Canada.